Okay, Ryan. Let me get this stupid thing turned around so you can see my face. Okay. So, I got a lot more done than I expected to, and I'm getting ready to head off to bed, but I thought I'd read you something out of one of my favorite books, not something out of Mom Mare's poetry book. So, we're going to be reading this, which Greco-Roman history, particularly Greek history, mythology, is one of my favorites. Mom Mare, my mother, your great-grandmother, really enjoyed Egyptian mythology. She had all kinds of stuff from Egypt and knew a lot about the mythology and the history of the country, or the history of the mythology. Maybe that would be more accurate to say. Alright, anyway, this is just a really short one because I am actually kind of tired and I'm going to go to bed. But, Tales of Ancient Greece, I got this book, gosh, I don't even know. MCMLXXI, so that's 1971. If it was copyright 1971, I would have been 6. Yeah, 6. So I got this when I was little. Just a little older than you are right now. The first one is extremely short, so it'll be extremely short. In the beginning. In the very beginning of the world, long before the coming of man, there was a nightmare period of strange shapes and dreams. Everything had a life of its own. Earth and sky were both living things, and they married and had children. Their children were the giants and the titans, some of whose tales are told in this book. One of the children of earth and sky was called Atlas, a powerful giant who fell out of favor with his parents for his continual misdeeds. For his punishment he was condemned to hold earth and sky apart till the end of time. To separate his mighty parents, he stood on a great mountain in North Africa, which is called Atlas to this day. Okay, maybe it's not so short. I'll keep reading. Kronos and Rhea, or Rhea, I don't know, some people pronounce that one differently, were also the offspring of earth and sky, and they married and had 5 children. They were Demeter, the goddess of the corn and fruits and all things that grow, Hestia, also called Hestia, goddess of the home and the sacred hearth, Hera, goddess of marriage and the birth of children, Poseidon, god of the sea, also called Triton sometimes, depending on the pantheon, Hades or Pluto, god of the dead, and Zeus, the supreme god whose special care was the air and sky. Zeus is considered the father of the gods. Zeus waged a great war in heaven to overcome his father, which I actually don't remember hearing much about Zeus having a father, but I'll have to look into that. And then divided the world with his brothers and sisters to rule forever. They set about putting the earth in order until at last it was a paradise. This was the golden age, when there was neither sin nor suffering in the world, and the first race of men whom the gods created lived like gods. They did not need to work, for the earth supplied all the fruits they needed in abundance. The sun shone down on them from a cloudless sky, neither too hot nor too cold. Clearly they did not live in Texas. They were never tired, but spent their lives dancing and feasting. They were never sad, nor did they ever quarrel among themselves. And they never grew old, but lived in great happiness and peace for a multitude of years, loved by the gods. When they died at last, it was as if they had fallen asleep at the day's ending, peaceful. My grandfather, Papa JT, died like that. He went to sleep one night, and he did not wake up. He died in his sleep. That's a good way to go. If you've got to go, just peaceful and no big deal. The men of the Golden Age had no children, and when they all died, their spirits wandered over the earth, keeping watch over the men of later times, helping and rewarding them, and sometimes punishing them. The Golden Age was followed by the Silver Age, but the men of this age were less noble than the men of the Golden Age. They were simple and foolish. Indeed, they took 100 years to grow up and only lived a little time as adults. For they were so foolish that they kept hurting one another, and they also disobeyed the commands of the gods. So Zeus ended their lives quickly and made a new race. The men of the Bronze Age were as foolish, although in a different way, as the men of the Silver Age. They loved war, and they made weapons of bronze with which to fight and kill each other. In the end, they were all killed, and their souls were banished to the darkest part of Hades, the kingdom of the dead. By this time, the beautiful earth that the gods had created teemed with life. Birds sang in the trees, wild animals roamed on the plains and in the forests, and fishes... Wild animals roamed on the plains and in the forests, and fishes swam through the clear waters of the rivers and oceans. But the earth was bereft of any creature akin to the gods. So Zeus felt the need to create a new and better race of men who would people the earth in an age of heroes, an age when all the heroic adventures would take place, such as the quest of the Golden Fleece and the siege of Troy. Alright. Zeus asked the help of one of the Titans, half god and half man, who had fought on his side during the great war in heaven. At the wish of Zeus, therefore, Prometheus molded man out of the red earth. He was fashioned in the likeness of the gods themselves, and he looked up to heaven as he stood on his 2 feet, while all the animals looked down upon the earth. Zeus breathed the breath of life into the first men, and Prometheus lived among them as a man himself, with his brother Epimetheus, and he taught them all he felt they should know. He taught them how to build houses as shelter from the cold of winter and the heat of summer, for the climate was no longer as favorable now as it had been in the Golden Age, but varied according to the moods of the gods. This must have been when they started Texas. He taught them how to find food among the wild herbs and fruits, and how to plant seeds and tend them, clearing away the briars which overgrew the earth. He taught them to catch and tame sheep and goats and cattle, and use these animals' strength to draw the plow and the cart, their skins and wool for clothing, and their meat for food. But more than all these things, Prometheus taught men to make laws and to live by them, to be kind and just to one another, and to worship the gods and offer sacrifices to them. When Zeus first breathed life into men, their minds, like those of the gods, were bound by no rules of time and space, so that they could see too much of the future for any true happiness. Prometheus took this power away from them, and he taught them to be grateful for each day as it came, without dreading what tomorrow might bring. Later, he promised them, he would give them the gift of hope, so that fear and despair would never turn them into savages. Prometheus grew to love the men and women whom he had helped to create more even than Zeus loved them. For Zeus feared that this new race might produce a hero who would overthrow him as he had overthrown his own father. For this reason Zeus denied men the gift of fire, and Prometheus knew that without this great force men would never rise any higher. Without fire they must still eat their meat raw. Without fire they could not forge bronze and gold to make jewelry and beautiful cups, and to bake the pots and bowls which he had taught them to make out of clay. So Prometheus decided to steal fire from Olympus and give it to men. One evening he lay in wait near the seashore close to the mountain where Atlas held up the sky. As the chariot of the sun passed low over his head, he reached up a torch to the wheel, and then transferred the flame to the pith in the hollow stalk of a giant fennel, where it would burn for many hours. Then Prometheus sped across the world until he came back to Greece, and here, in a wooded valley in Arcadia, he kindled the first blaze. Now the wonderful secret belonged to men forever, and even Zeus could not take it away from them. Prometheus had almost instructed men in all the many uses of fire, when one night Zeus looked down from Olympus and saw sparks of fire shining up from the dark earth like stars in the night sky. He knew at once who had done this, and thunder rolled from Mount Olympus over the earth as Zeus vented his wrath on Prometheus. At the command of Zeus, Prometheus was bound with great chains to the high peak of Mount Caucasus beyond the Black Sea, near the very edge of the world. The Caucasus Mountains, I think, are in Russia, Eastern Europe. Anyway, he was tortured each day by a fierce eagle, and he suffered the bitter frosts by night and the burning sun by day. He hung there for many terrible years until at last Zeus relented. And that is the end of the first story. The next one, which I'll read you some other time, is Pandora's Box, which is a lot of fun. Maybe I'll even read you some of my stories, because I've written some that I think you would enjoy. So anyway, I'm going to finish this up, get it uploaded to YouTube for you, and I am going to take my happy grandma butt to bed. Love you, love everybody.